Good morning, it's Saturday morning and this is Ose. We're playing Lawfolds on Farm Sim 17. Still working over those last two achievements and I have no idea what's going on in the world because I haven't played this for a week. Okay. Most of the fields are growing, those are completed. I think I need to do those two. That looks like barley. That looks like barley. We're going to produce a lot of barley this year. So I need to fertilize that field. And that's the last stage. I also need to fertilize that field. So, good. We can sell stuff if we want to. How's the equipment looking? It looks like... Okay, the blue truck's going to need a service within the week. We spent a lot of money today, and we'll find out what that's all about later. And the animals are all fed, and there's no grass. And there's no eggs on the ground. Okay. So. And I really need to change that tractor because it's not powerful enough to haul that water tank. That's the blue truck. Oh, yes, we're all down here. That's what we did. It's still early spring, it's late at night. We can jump day. Let's do that. Hello? Okay, that's working. Why isn't that working? Let's get out of the truck. We need to be out of the truck to skip time. Okay, now let's do it. So we'll go to morning, which is 17 minutes before sunrise, and for some reason my stream seems to be stuck. Refresh. There we go, that looks better. Okay, so we still made a lot of money from the milk yesterday. That's a good thing. We now have 110 pigs. What? Okay, so it's now overnight. So we'll need to check the animals again. Pigs are going to need food, and pretty quickly because we are breeding them at 3 per day. That should get us to 50 before not long. Meanwhile, we have some work to do in the fields, and that's full. So... I don't need the map open. But I will go for a couple of screenshots. I'm going to wait till the sun breaks over the hill before I take one from up there. So in spite of everything, I'm still preferring the 3-point mounted sprayers or the dedicated spray vehicles. Because frankly, those trailed ones, they might hold a lot, but they don't give you any better coverage, and they can be tricky to use on this sort of map. So, we are here. Yeah, there's no such thing as GPS on this tractor. And for some reason that didn't start, so let's try that one again. There we go. So the thing is with this today, this is the last time I'm going to do this field until it's time to harvest. I am going to have to sell some barley from the main stores because we've got so many large fields growing barley today. We've only got room for, what's it, 500,000 litres split over the two farms. And frankly, I think one of them's almost full. We could use the overflow storage up at Aberdeen Grains, I think it is. But you have to pay for that. I don't know how much because I've never used it. But, barley's not that valuable a crop. That's one thing I haven't checked out in Farm Sim 19 is what the edges of the map look like. I mean, this one is just one solid wall of trees, surrounds the entire map, with a couple of road bridges where the roads leave the town, or leave the area, should I say. There's no town here. But, some of the more recent Farm Sim 19 maps had sort of groups of trees that rotated so they were pointing directly at where you were. But it did make the edge of the map slightly more dynamic, but it was still an edge. The funny thing was you could drive through those trees. There were a number of times I left the map, the technical map bounds on Oldstream Farm, because the walls weren't solid, they were individually placed. Yeah, the tree images were kind of like your classic horror movie picture painting where the eyes follow you as you move around the room. The trees would follow you as you moved around the map. Now another option, we could use this tractor in the sheep farm. I might actually try that. Take this tractor over to the sheep farm once we've done all the field work. Put regular tyres on it and hitch that water tank to the back and see how well it does hauling that around. Because if that's sufficient, then I don't need to replace the Lindner, I can just sell it. The Lindner doesn't have narrow tyres, so I can't use it for this sort of job. And then I might look for something small just for this sort of work. Might even look at the Hurleman T4. Okay. I suppose the nice thing about Farm Sim 19 is while fertilising crops takes as long as it does in 17, you only have to do it twice. And obviously if you prepare your fields properly, you only have to do it one more time. Got loaded on this at the moment. We've got a front loader attacher. Front loaders at the main farm. Yep. I'm going to look at replacing, putting this over where the Lindner is now. Selling the Lindner. While I like the all-wheel steering of it, it just doesn't have the power or weight. Morning, K Tigris, how you doing? This field is barley and is probably going to blow out my storage facilities on the farm. Because I've got two fields that are currently with barley. If I expand that, fields 29, 28, 29, 30 and 31 are ploughed into one large field, and that entire field's about 12 hectares and is also growing barley. And barley doesn't actually carry a good price on this map, or consistently hasn't carried a good price on this map. On other maps, barley tends to be fairly competitive with wheat. Doesn't matter which one you grow, you still get straw, and you get approximately the same price. Oh, cool. Yeah, Saturday mornings is my Lawfolds day. I have 2 achievements still to get. One is the breed 50 sheep and the other one is breed 20 cows, and I haven't done either yet. And because I'm playing seasons, obviously cows aren't going to start breeding until summer. But I think I'm 17 done, I think, so I only need 3 more, and I think I'm doing less than one or just more than one a day. The piggies, I just bumped up the quantity to 100 just before winter, and so I've got over As I said, I've got over 100, and I've got 110 now, with another one due any minute. And once again, no idea how close I am to 50. Good morning, more people. So I've started a little bit early this morning, but I do have a lot of chores to do today, so I'm not going to be running through to midday like I tend to. First Saturday of the month is the only day the local tip will take electronics for recycling. And I have 3 incredibly old computers, one dating back to about 1999, that kind of need to be disposed of. So we'll be loading the car up with those and taking them down. Last month I took 3 more computers and I think all of the broken printers we have, which is was about 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, we've kept the old computer equipment for long enough, so we're going to get rid of that now. I pulled all the hard drives and reformatted them all, after copying anything we wanted to keep off them. Whoa. They were still fairly powerful. The first PC I ever got was 486SX, 33 megahertz clock speed, and the reason I bought it was because at the time the 33SX chip was £60, and for a DX266 it was somewhere in the region of £250, and I didn't see the point in paying £200 for more for a computer. So I waited 6 months and bought a DX266 chip for £60 and swapped the chips over. I think I ended up selling the 486SX anyway, the processor itself. I did a lot of, that was the first PC I bought, and it was still pretty much the first PC I ever bought, progressively upgraded for the next 5 years. It ended up as AMD K7, I think. And I used all the spare parts to build my sister her first computer, because she was a poor single mother at the time, and the only thing I had to go out and buy was a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive. I had spares of everything else. Because I ran my own business at the time, I bought myself a very nice little modem. In those days, modems plugged into the telephone line, and this one could take faxes, voice messages, and data. So obviously during the day the PC was off because I was out at client sites, and so I left the modem on, and it would save all of the incoming faxes and voice messages, and I could get home, and as soon as I turned the PC on, it would interrogate the modem and download all the messages and faxes, and I could view them, print them, listen to them. I kind of like that, but obviously in this day and age you don't need to do that because the PC's always on, and who has a landline? We haven't had a landline now for about 5 years. Oh yes. Actually, that was another story I had. My boss at the time had an old 286 PC at work that had a 5 1/4 and a 3.5 inch drive, and I think it was 40 megabyte hard drive, which was quite rare because most of them only came with 10s or 20s. And we tracked American football. Obviously, being in the UK, we called it American football. And he decided, oh, it's probably about time I bought a PC at home. So he bought himself a Dell PC, which off the shelf was about £1,200, and they were giving away LaserJet 2 printers at the time for almost nothing. So he figured, I get myself a LaserJet printer and I've got a PC I can do stuff with. Well, he spent the entire weekend entering a load of stats on the PC in a spreadsheet, and on the Monday, we tended to stay late at work, so he said, oh, I've got something to show you. So I dragged my chair over to his desk and he stuck the disk in, and it took about 30 seconds to load this spreadsheet. He said, oh, this is much quicker at home, but not to worry. And then he pressed the page up key, and it took another 30 seconds for the PC to render the next page on the spreadsheet. And at that point he said, okay, I'm going to ask my boss if I can have a new computer, because this is obviously impacting my productivity at work. And he got one. He went to his boss and he said, look, my PC at home, it only cost me £1,000 and it's 20 times faster than this one. Can I have a new PC? Oh yeah, sure. But our boss was a really nice guy. He wasn't a computer guy, and he knew his limitations, but he was one of those bosses who, when he asked you to work late, he stayed late as well. And he didn't have to, because he didn't really add any technical benefit to being there when he asked us, but he felt it was his duty to do what he asked his people to do. And he bought the pizza. So we were perfectly happy working for him. Since then, I've worked for bosses that sort of, you need to be working 2 days this weekend, we're going out to the golf course. It's sort of, seriously, no. You want to inconvenience everybody under you, and you don't want the inconvenience yourself. And it doesn't foster loyalty in your crew. And my current boss is okay as well. I'm now of the age and experience that I can pretty much pick and choose who I work for. And I don't work for people who don't appreciate me. Because it's just not worth the hassle. And it was a big mistake I made with my first IT job. I mean, we were there sort of 7 o'clock in the morning and went home at 9, 10 o'clock at night. And then, I mean, we were getting older, and it's sort of, I need to go home. And it's sort of, what, you're not working till 9 o'clock? Like, it's expected of you. It's sort of, no, that's not part of my contract. You want me to work from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, plus any other time that the job requires. But you ain't requiring me to work 60 hours a week. I'd done that voluntarily up to now, and I had to quit that job because they were getting seriously problematic with their demands. And I quit that first job I went and started my own consultancy, and that was eye-opening because it became well, the contract calls me to provide you with services between 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and anything that happens after 5 o'clock is your problem unless you stump up some cash. And it's surprising how many people don't want to pay for the additional service when it's going to cost them. So, yeah, I suddenly got a life and got married and stuff like that because I had the time to. Although working as a consultant, I was driving sometimes 100 miles each way to work. And while that's... I mean, where I lived, I was outside of London, so long as the contract wasn't in London, I was always going the opposite way to the traffic. But so it was the traffic was very light when I went to work. But even so, that's an hour's commute each way. Although going into London, which was only 20 miles away, was an hour commute each way. You can... the only problem was the wear and tear on the car. I mean, it was sort of, oh, the car's a little bit dirty. Yeah, it's 6,000 miles since it was last put in for a service. Most of the service dealerships I went to cleaned the car as well, so I'd get the car, change the oil, change the filters, clean the car. Thanks very much. 4 weeks later, oh, it's getting dirty again. Yeah, it's time for another oil change. Oh, now I worked, the last place that required me to work over Christmas was Virgin Game Centre. And it wasn't a problem. We took delivery of products overnight, and I was responsible for buying all the TSR products, Dungeons and Dragons publishers at the time. And so whenever we got a TSR delivery, I needed to be in the store at 4 o'clock in the morning to price it all up and stick it on the shelves, because frankly there was no time during the day to restock the shelves, and so you had to do it at night. So I spent about 4 hours that morning pricing everything up, and I got to go home at lunchtime, which was quite pleasant. But there was one day, I was just wandering around the store seeing if anybody needed help, and I happened upon in the general game section where Monopoly was supposed to be, there was one copy of Monopoly left on the shelf. So I fought my way to the back of the store, to the stock room, picked up about a dozen boxes stacked high, got the stockroom staff to help me stack them in my arms, and by the time I reached the point in the store where Monopoly was supposed to be, I had one copy left in my hands. People had been helping themselves to it as I walked across the store. So okay, I did that. I'm not going to do that again. It took me about 20 minutes to get to the back of the store and up to the front. And while it was probably the coldest day of the year outside, it was the hottest day of the year inside that shop, because we had no air conditioning, and there were so many bodies you couldn't move. But I kind of enjoyed working retail, because you get to meet people and talk to people, and if you're in an environment or a store which sells stuff you're interested in, like role-playing games, whatever, then people come in late in the evening and you can shoot the breeze with them and talk about what they're playing and what you're playing, and do you have any recommendations and what do you think about this module, and etc, etc. And it's something that obviously you don't get working IT. I talk to computers all day. They don't answer back. They do what I tell them, which is nice. They don't have hassles. But you don't get the human contact. Oh yeah, that much I know. Although I did get on quite well. I used to own a BMW motorcycle. I got on quite well with the service tech at the store. And I had an old BMW R65 1982 model, and by this time it was 1990. And I think the back wheel got buckled. And so I went into the store and spoke to the technician. I said, look, I need a new back wheel. What's that going to set me back? And he was like, oh, that's probably about, I think it was £250. And so, well, the bike's only worth £1,000. He said, well, I'll tell you what we can do. We've got an old R45, same model bike with a 450 engine rather than the 650. And there's a lot wrong with it, but it does have a back wheel that's in fairly good condition. We could do that for, say, £100. So sort of, yeah, okay. We'll come in really early tomorrow before the boss gets here, and we'll swap it over for you. And so that's what I did. Now, the amusing thing was, what I didn't know was the drum of the rear brake on my back wheel, on the old wheel, was extremely worn out, and it actually took him about 20-30 minutes to adjust the rear brake rod so that the brake shoes would fit inside the far less worn out R45 drum. But, yeah, I had to retire that bike because while it was a good commuter, I was starting to be required to go out and visit the central warehouse and some branches, and the central warehouse was 300 miles away, and the R65 could cruise at 70, barely, and it wouldn't go any faster than 70. It was that tired. And so it's sort of, yeah, for my safety I'm going to need something that can comfortably cruise at 80 and still has a little bit of power left to avoid situations. So I upgraded that to the K100 LT BMW, and that was a nice bike. A little bit rough, but went well. Yeah, I hadn't really noticed any problem. The rear brake on the R65 wasn't a problem. It was just that nobody had paid attention to it and hadn't noticed that it was practically worn out. The brakes worked fine. And in my case, the wheel got bent because I needed a new tyre, and it was an emergency. The back tyre had blown, so I had to use the most convenient place available. And unfortunately, they bent the wheel when they were swapping the tyre out. Now, normally I went to a place in South London, which was a good hour's trip on a bike, there and back, but they were a bulk discount tyre place that specialised in bikes and cars, and so they knew how to treat bikes with care. A new tyre on a BMW, if you went to a BMW dealer, would generally cost you about £100 for a front one and then £120 for the back, and that's because you're paying for the BMW technician who costs $80 an hour or £80 an hour to replace it for you. Sort of, yeah, that's expensive. But but if you went to this tyre place, they didn't charge nearly that much for the guys who changed the tyre. So I could get a front tyre for about 60 and the back for 80, which is, all told, £80 cheaper than I could do it at the BMW place. Okay, that's full. Let's go get back in the tractor. I may not be close enough to the back, that's the thing. There we go. But yeah, I'm a believer in doing things right, because it does end up costing you on a vehicle. A friend of mine had some Nissan SUV, and she got an oil leak, so she decided to weld the top of the engine to the bottom of the engine. And then she had troubles inside the engine, and obviously now you couldn't take it apart because she'd effectively sealed it. But welding the engine together was very cheap, and obviously saved money. Yeah, this kit's not quite big enough for this field in terms of capacity. However, anything larger would have trouble in some of my smaller fields. Now, where is the place where we could be expanding the boom? Expanding, no, select the back, expand the boom. And that looks like about where we need to be. My first car, what was my first car? 95 Peugeot 405 wagon. And while I passed my test, driving test in about 1983, I passed my driving test. I didn't own a car until 1995. And that was a good car for what, you know, I bought it while I still had a full-time job, and then I went contracting. It turned out to be probably the best deal I had, because it had a turbo diesel engine. And I was getting 45 to 50 miles to the gallon highway. UK gallon, not US gallon. So it's about 25% bigger than a US gallon. But yeah, with the cost of gas in the UK up at around £5 per gallon, just having a diesel that did 50 meant it didn't cost you as much. Although when I came here to America, I quickly determined that driving a diesel car wasn't financially as good a decision as it is in the UK. Yeah, they never sold the 400 series. I think in America they sold the 500, which was the larger wagon, but obviously at the time Americans liked larger cars, not the small European ones. But yeah, when I came over to it, because yeah, with diesel, you generally realise about a 30% better fuel consumption. So in a car, I'd have been doing 32 miles to the gallon on a gas engine, but almost 50 with the diesel. And in the UK, diesel was cheaper than gas because it's easier to make, and there wasn't quite as much tax on diesel as there was on gas, because that would have made public transport more expensive and delivering stuff. And since at the time the railways were nationalised, most of the bus services around London were nationalised, it was the government that was paying for the diesel to run the buses and the trains. So they didn't want diesel to be too expensive, and it benefited the taxi drivers as well, who drove the black cabs around London, and it benefited people like me who bought diesel cars. But you were talking, diesel was about 90% of the cost of a gallon of gas. So one, the fuel's cheaper, two, you're getting more mileage. The only downside was that a diesel engine tended to cost about £1,000 to £2,000 more to buy than the equivalent gas engine. But obviously if you're doing 50,000 miles in 3 years, you've recouped that difference and then some in the fuel costs. Plus diesels need less maintenance, so that was also another benefit. You're changing the oil and what have you far less frequently, so cheaper maintenance all around. But here in America, at least in Michigan, diesel is about 40% more expensive than gas. Now, if you factor in a diesel engine gets 30% better mileage, you're still paying out of pocket more for the diesel per mile than you are for the gas per mile. So that's likely to be one of the reasons why a lot of Americans don't drive diesel. It doesn't make financial sense. Now, if you care about the environment, then you're burning less petrochemical fuel if you use a diesel vehicle than if you're using a gas vehicle. But once again, the diesel, at least until the 1990s in Europe, wasn't particularly clean. When they started making the low sulphur diesel in the early 90s in the UK, the diesel engines got a lot cleaner. But even so, in spite of the fact that you didn't eliminate, or you eliminated a lot of the heavy smog around London, what you didn't do was actually clean the air. And at the time I was living there, I was learning to fly an aeroplane about 20 miles north of London, and there were hot summer days. You would take off from the runway and look in the general direction of London. You could not see any of the buildings. What you could see was a big giant black dome of soot hanging over the city. And that's kind of gross, but I'm not going to bother with that because that's not going to work. Okay. So we're kind of done with this kit for now. Yeah, I need to wait till that grass starts growing, and it still hasn't grown first stage yet. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why I don't understand why is diesel so expensive in the US when it is a byproduct of making gasoline and avgas and everything else, jet fuel. You make all that stuff, and the crud that you've got left over is diesel. It's not like it's difficult to produce the stuff, but in America, it's, yeah, it can be up to 40-50% more expensive to buy diesel than it is to buy gasoline. Okay, we shall dump this in here. I do like this kit, although I haven't used it in Farm Sim 19. Mainly because the 32,000 litre, or the, no, what is it, the 3,200 litre single tank, rear mounted tank is cheaper. 2,200 litres, the okay, that doesn't go down, so we'll have to drop it on the floor. Okay, I'm going to take this round to the workshop and put some regular tyres on it. Then we're going to run over to the sheep farm and see if that water tank is usable. Customize. Okay, 2 options for tyres. What's the horsepower? Oh, 130. That's good. Okay. Well, that was what the original diesel engine was made for. The guy who invented it, you know, I can stick anything I want to in this engine and it will run. Especially biomass. Okay, I'm going to leave these forks here because I can, oh yeah, because I can use those on the Valtra. I do still have the Valtra, don't I? Where are all my tractors gone? Huh. Okay. For the middle of winter, we seem to have an issue. Oh, no, I moved the Valtra over to the cow farm. Yeah. Drop that. There we go. In the UK, you can, just as I was leaving, around late 90s, you could buy diesel cars that were dual fuel. You could run them on liquid petroleum gas and diesel. And there were gas stations in the cities that were coming online with LPG tanks. And so it was very cheap to fill up your diesel car. Now, you lost it in fuel consumption because there's not as much energy in LPG as there is in diesel. But your running costs dropped by another 70-80% to make them even more efficient to use than a gas vehicle. But the LPG tank, I think the LPG tank was smaller, took up some of your trunk space. So you only got about 200 miles rather than 400 to 600 miles you could get out of a diesel tank. And if you wanted to go cross country, you filled the car up with diesel and you switched it to diesel and did all your highway driving in diesel. Once you got to where you were going... Oh, we're in England. We drive on the wrong side. Yeah, once you got to where you were going, you could switch over to the LPG tank and go back to super saving mode. Okay, in FS17 you press the menu button, escape, and the leftmost one shows you the map. If you press X, it switches to land mode, and then you can click on each section of land, and I believe its spacebar allows you to buy the land, and it'll show you the price of the land and your bank balance. So if you don't have enough money, it shows in red, and if you do have enough money, it shows in white. And then, as I said, you press space, it'll purchase the land, and you're good to go. Okay, let's see if the sheep actually need something, because they need water. Okay, they don't need hay stuff at the moment. So I'm going to get out, run over here and pick up that water tank. And if this works... because this is just too heavy. I've got my foot to the floor. Tractor's at full power and I'm barely moving. Now once it gets rolling, it's okay. But to get that thing moving, I mean that's full to the floor and we're shifting. But so let's see if a 130 horsepower Massey Ferguson can do the job. Where'd the tank go? Oh, over there. And I'm pretty much figuring in FS19 your best way to go is to buy a bunch of small fields initially, because you've only got small equipment. And it can take just way too long to use small equipment on large fields. And so you can get out there, you can plant a crop, and then move on to the next field while that crop's starting to grow. Okay, I'm not sure. This tractor's still struggling with the weight of that tank on the back. I might even go for something bigger then. Okay. There we go. But I'm definitely enjoying Farm Sim 19 now. Like I said, I know the limitations of my setup at the moment. I can't use telehandlers, I can't use the large forestry equipment with the loader cranes. I can use a front loader on a tractor though, Though that front loader fork for forestry just sucks badly. Crikey. That's a lot of water, dudes. Okay. I'm going to put that there. Why won't you let me drop it? Seriously. It will not let me drop that. Does it have to be full? I suppose we could do that. I think there's might be a problem with the weight of the tank, because that's really not letting me move, whether it's full or empty. Okay, there we go. Yeah, see, the take up on that is far better when it's empty, or when it's unloaded. Unladen, is it? Stop there. Yeah, okay, that tank's a problem. That's a shame, because it's quite convenient. So, we're not going to do anything with this tractor. Keep that. But I'm thinking we are going to replace the Linsner. Something with a little bit more get up and go. Why don't you want to do that? There we go. Check. This was my first purchase. Tractor on the farm. I think the Massey came with the farm, and I did have a Fast Track 3000 series which came with the farm, and I sold that at the beginning of last game year. I've had this one since I started. I have 19. Saturday mornings is my Farm Sim 17 playthrough. And I'm going with this playthrough until at least I have the last 2 achievements that I haven't done completed. Which is the pig breeding, because I've never bothered with pigs before. And the cow breeding, because I've never played a farm long enough to have the cows breed to sufficient levels. Oh! Okay. I guess the Massey's coming to the store with us. Weekday evenings I play Farm Sim 19. My streaming farm is Estancia Lapacho. Ravenport is my private farm, which I don't stream, and that's because Arthur Chapman and friends play Ravenport as the group farm. And if I stream on Sunday, I will stream Fellsbrunn, which is a start from scratch game. But Saturdays kind of throwback Saturdays. While I like the Lindner, it's a good yard tractor for a small British farm or European farm. It's not a field tractor. You can't put small tyres on it. Bye bye. Okay. Tractors. That's only. You can't put a front loader on that. Oh, they're cheap. 145. Okay, then we're getting into big. So. See, that's not good as a field tractor either, because you can only put wides and standards on it. You can't use it for crop spraying. I don't need one for crop spraying. And I can put a front loader on it. And it's 145 horsepower. And it's going for a discount. So yes, let's buy that. Yes, I've seen Fellsbrunn as an easy mode start. My personal farm is Ravensport, and I started that one on easy mode just to see, what it was like. And on that one, they give you 4 fields in the southeast corner of the map. If you're playing on Arthur's farm, with Arthur, it's the field area that's taken up by the animal farm. Now the fields are very small, and it's difficult to make a lot of money quickly. I think having on Ravenport the 14, 15, 16, 17 fields are larger, but you can still work them with the smaller 3-4 meter equipment, and maybe a slightly better starting option. Although at the moment I've lost a lot of money on Arthur's game. Our farm should start becoming financially sufficient next week. I need to buy a sprayer, but that's, I think, the only thing I need to buy. Planning to lease most of the rest of the equipment for now, because we need to run 4 tractors, because you can have up to, you know, if you play 16 players with 4 farms, you need to be able to support 4 players in each farm. And you kind of need to have 4 tractors at that point. There's a Massey you can tracks on. I don't know. There's no in-game Massey that I know of that you can put tracks on. Okay. Turn the lights off. Turn the engine off. Jump out. And let's go and change the... Oh, heck. Oh, I don't want you there. No, 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 no. There we go. We're going to the sheep farm. Let's see how you behave with that water tank. I do like the new case in Farm Sim 19 that's, you know, the lowest of the medium tractors. It'll run up to about 200, over 200 horsepower. But I don't. You can't put front loader on it. But it does make us sort of a starting heavy tractor, if you like. The other option is the Valtra N, which goes barely over 200, but you have to pay for that. But that does allow for front loaders and stuff. And the other option I like is the Fendt 500 Favorit, because you can get 150 horsepower tractor with front loader for less than 100,000. Okay, let's see how you behave. Oh, it's a little bit better. I think I can live with that. Okay. It's certainly better than the 100 horsepower Lindner, and even the 130 of the Massey. So that means the Massey stays as my field tractor. I like that. Oops. Lift. Those are bale spikes. I'll drop those. Time to get the spray paint out. Huh, okay. Let's try that again. Okay, spray can out. Oh, let's go that far. Colour. Because I can't be bothered to try 4 different shades of red until I hit the one that's approximately case. So I think my problems with the water tank on the back is because I'm running the realistic fuel mod. It's just putting or deciding to act with a lot more strain on the engine than something like the 7,000 litre trailer that you can haul, which is kind of odd. But, here we go. Yeah, that's kind of good enough. Let's put this tractor away. And wait for a time when the sheep actually need some food and stuff. So, you're done. Now I need to find the Massey. Oh, I need to move that truck as well. There we go. Looks like a dull day. It is a dull day. Yeah, on this farm, my big tractor, since the beginning, has been the class 940. And that's got 320 horsepower and has served me very well. I mean, I'm hauling around the big plough, the Lemken plough, and I think the Lemken cultivator. The cultivator's a 12-metre cultivator, and both the seeder and the planter. The planter's Horsch. I can't remember what the manufacturer on the seeder is. But they're both 12-metre as well. When I started, I only had 6-metre equipment, and I was finding that the class couldn't do a perfect 180 with 6-metre equipment, whereas with the 12-metre equipment, it fits really nicely. Okay, so we need to get the spikes on the front, which are there. And I am really missing that log fork for 19. So I found that far more stable than the stupid 3-pin or 3-pronged fork that they give you in game. Okay, we need to go hunting tractors. Oh, that's right. I sold that. So, that's done. Now, where's my Valtra? What's it doing? Valtra was transferred to the cow farm to feed cows, because it has the longer the longer arms on the front loader. So, oops. Where is it? Here. It has the longer arms on the front loader, and this mixing wagon is taller than standard. And I was having problems with the Massey trying to reach up and drop bales in there. Okay, let's bring this back to the farm. I'm not a big fan of the skid steers. They're kind of useful. But having things like logging equipment, you can't load the logging trailer with a skid steer because it doesn't, it really doesn't have the reach. And it's probably good to have one on something like the Valley of the Old Farm because of that hayloft. You want something small, light and agile to shuffle your bales around. This farm actually started off with a skid steer, and I sold that on day one. It also started with about 16 pallets of fertiliser, 16 of seed and 16 of liquid fertiliser. And I needed to dump those quickly because my PC at the time just didn't have the power to run this map without having severe problems if you're looking directly at one of the farm yards. Okay, so that we're done with. I'm not sure we're going to get this set for 19 either. And it's very useful on around the farm. I could probably get away with a semi, but on the roads it's a lot easier to have a 3-axle truck rather than a tractor trailer rig. I tried taking, I had played an aborted attempt on this map, and I took a tractor with a 30-foot trailer, 32-foot trailer of silage bales down to the BGA, and the tractor rolled on the intersection where traffic comes from 3 directions, and it was messy. And I figured, yeah, running 32-foot trailers on this is not a great plan. With this, I can do a lot of stuff just with the truck on its own. And if I do need a trailer, then the trailer set for this is about the same length. Actually, thinking about it, we were going to sell some stuff. I need to get rid of the barley, and Highland Grains is where it's at. Is that? Yeah. Sunflowers. I haven't grown any sunflowers on this map. Soybeans and canola. Okay, let's go sell some barley. Yes, I like the grain trucks, but I find this set to be a little bit more functional, because you can swap function just like you can with a semi-trailer. So this was a fertilizer tank which I used for, a tank that was filled with fertilizer that I can use for refilling the sprayer, because the sprayer is so small on this farm. A little bit further. Hello. I went too far. Yeah, I went way too far. There we go. But it kind of saves, because I only need one vehicle with an engine, and one day it can be a tipper, the next day it can be a bale trailer or a flatbed to go shopping with. I have auger wagons that are loaded with seed and fertilizer that I can attach to the back and just run this out to a field and resupply the seeder when it's in operation. I've got the animal trailers I just hit, so I can move animals around, and I've got the logging frames, which the pair I can carry approximately 10 trees, 9 to 10 trees depending on the size. And because I'm only buying one engine effectively, that's the expensive part of the vehicle. And then there's the trailers. I've got 2 trailers so I can have one loaded for the for field work, hauled around by a tractor. And then the truck can use a pair. Although since I've got 2 trucks, sometimes I will run a second trailer on the truck, on the other truck. But these, this size of vehicle fits very nicely on country lanes in places like... The first place I used this was Oldstream Farm. Back when the mod was directly from GTX Mods. But their programmer quit and he released the set to the mod hub, the official game mod hub. And so this version is the official mod hub version. You can actually buy a service pod that fits to the back, so you can go out and repair vehicles on site. It also includes seed refill, fertilizer refill and such. But I don't know how much that costs, because it charges you as you're loading the equipment. And on this map, seed is 50% more expensive if you buy it out of the farm fill points, as opposed to buying pallets from the store and shipping them to the farm. So unless I'm down to sort of, I've got 20% of the field left to do, and I can't be bothered to run out to the store and buy more seed, I'm gonna use the farm resupply for that. But if it's a major job, I'm gonna be bringing the stuff in pallets from the store and just filling up my seed tender. Yes, there are actually larger tippers available. This set is 21,000 litres, but it's the only set with tarpaulin cover. So I bought these because I can unload a harvester in the field, throw the cover over when the rain starts, and yeah, I know crops aren't destroyed when it rains, but you protect them. I think there's 40,000 litre tippers that you can get for this, but at that point they have no cover. And I did use this setup with the larger trailers for wood chips on Oldstream Farm, because some of those trees are parked so close to the edge of the fields. It was, helpers were crashing into them, or crashing into the low-hanging branches when they were driving tractors, and harvesters underneath them are just sort of, okay, enough's enough. Those trees need down and I'm going to chip them. So I could run 80,000 litres of wood chips out to the sawmill in one run. Okay, we're going. I have not experienced weather on Farm Sim 19 yet. It's been bright and sunny on all 3 maps that I'm playing. Okay, first things first, tip side left. Tip side left. Works for me. Can't remember whether it's so. I've got the mixing wagon. That's the animal transport flatbed. This is the service, which does seed, fertilizer, fuel, and water. It doesn't carry a repair thing. There's a timber runner with a crane, which I don't use. There's one with a cage, which I don't use because that's primarily for smaller hand cut stuff. This is 6 meter. So I can cut 6 meter tree lengths and load that up. I got 2 of those. There's fuel, there's multi-use tanks, there's a spreader. No, is that the spreader? Spray. And that's really field equipment, so I'm not going to haul that with the truck. That's a slurry spreader. Then you've got the general purpose tanks. That is a spreader. Once again, not going to bother with those because they're field use equipment. Oh, that's a manure spreader. So you've got the Brantner trailer, which is 16,000. You've got the chaser bin, which I've got 2 of those. That's 30. That's 30,500. This is only 21,000, but comes with a cover, and then the lizard tipper's 25, and the Fleagle is 30 as well. Now, if I look on, I think it's tippers. Oh, I've got that tipper truck, which is 45,000 litres. Here's some more frames. That's 60,000. That's 25,000 litres. You've got a water tank, which is 12. Milk tank, which is 25, which obviously I don't need. Can't remember what else I've got in the AR frame section, but yeah, there are bigger tippers. It's just that there aren't any bigger tippers with a cover. So, that's another 20,000 money. Once you learn the traffic patterns, as always, you don't have to worry about random vehicles crashing into the side of you. You know the direction they're coming from. Okay, it's 10 o'clock real time, so I've got another hour here. And then I have to go and take old computers to the recycle. As I said, they're only open on Saturdays, first Saturday of the month, and only for a couple of hours. before any other vehicles come the other way. Roads are very narrow here. You imagine trying to get a semi-truck round here and then take a right turn into that farm entrance, which has obstacles on both sides. It's not so easy. Hi, Sniper. And who's that in very dark blue on a black background? Is that Chris? Christoph. Morning, Christoph. You're a fan of me or the Farm Sim games? Farm Sim 17. Ah, yeah, my Friday stream, you can go back and watch old videos. They are saved for 60 days. Yesterday's stream was the multiplayer on Ravensport Farm Sim 19. Where am I going? And we had quite a lot of fun with that. I thought it was a very productive, fun game, because we've now, rather than having 16 people on one farm and not enough work to do, we've got 16 people over 4 farms and still not a lot of work to do. But now in Farm Sim 19 you can do contracts, so each farm can have its own contract running, which you can give your minions something to do, which is kind of cool. That's the lid. We'll fill that one up. Hello, that one up. Oh. Yes, that one up. Okay, so that's going to take us down to 23,000 barley. I'm going to stick with that. Check the price. Highland Grains, that's still just where we were. No, sorry. Aberdeen Grains. Oh, that's the other way. Hey Pi, how you doing this morning? Yeah, for the time being, Saturday is Throwback Saturdays, Farm Sim 17 on Lawfolds. Oh, that's 2 pigs since this morning. Since I've bought more pigs over the winter, we're now up over 100, and so during spring through fall they're breeding at about 1 every 8 hours, so it shouldn't take me too long to get to 50. No, I do not play Fortnite. Current games I do play are World of Warships, although I may be playing less of that with Arthur because he's concerned on his viewership figures because he's now made partner in Twitch. I play Farm Sim 17, although only Lawfolds and only on Saturday at the moment. And I play Farm Sim 19, which is becoming a very enjoyable gaming experience. Okay, it looks like we can make it. And at that point, a car comes in from the left and smashes into me. No, it doesn't. Good. And we just started multiplayer Euro Truck Simulator once again with Arthur and friends. So I tried to join them last Monday and was having issues getting everything configured for Truckers MP Play. And then just after Arthur stopped streaming, I got Truckers MP to actually work. And so we played that on Thursday this week. And all the videos have been transferred now to YouTube. So you can watch them there. Link is below. Because finding me on YouTube is a little bit difficult. If you do a search for Osei, you'll come up with Osei Shalom and various other Jewish religious stuff, and so you won't find me there that way. Yeah, yesterday was a very enjoyable game, I must admit. Honestly, I don't know if you can lose partner. I'm guessing if you start broadcasting objectionable material, you lose your account, which means you've lost partner. But they sort of have a minimum requirement for being an associate, which is what I made a couple of weeks ago, so I can now support subscribers and cheers and what have you. To become a partner, you need to broadcast consistently and have an average of 70 viewers per hour for the previous 30 days. And Arthur managed that when he was streaming Farm Sim 19 before it was released to the general public. And so I think he's of the opinion he needs to keep 70 viewers per hour. But I've been reading around, and while becoming, the Twitch requirements for becoming partner and associate, especially partner, exist, they can be considered guidelines. If you are doing something that Twitch really like and you're broadcasting consistently and you have a reasonably good viewership figures, not necessarily the 70 per hour average that they require, then they may grant you partnership early, but it's a case of you have to apply and expect to get turned down. But it's not entirely impossible to make Twitch partner and not have their stated minimum requirements. It's just that you're more likely to get it if you meet the requirements. And I think Arthur's been streaming for about 2 years now. And so it took him 2 years to become partner. It's taken me 2 months to become associate, which is a nice bonus. And maybe after the new year, as more farms come online, I may consider doing Twitch streaming with subscribers, but at this point that's still to be decided. Okay, I can put this stuff away now. We sold enough barley. I don't know. I haven't heard if anyone's working on Follow Me. There are rumours that GPS and Courseplay may be being worked on, but once again, it's difficult to tell. From what I've been made aware, the people who wrote the GPS and Courseplay mods are now working cattle and crops, and so general feeling is that they might not be wanting to support a competitor. I did get the real-time clock mod for 19, which if you look at the top right of my screen, there's the real-time ticking away, so I can actually see without having to look away what the time is and estimate when my wife's going to yell at me because I'm not doing what I need to do. Disconnect, come on. Oh, you can't disconnect the truck from itself. I do not have any emoticons yet, and that's going to be a learning experience for me, or someone being kind of making me some that I can use. But I understand that's a possibility. Like I said, I've only been an associate for 2 weeks, so there we go. In general, I find suing computer game publishers to be kind of dubious, especially, unless you've put money into it. I can see an argument for, say, something like Star Citizen, because that's been going for goodness knows how long. There's people who've poured tons of money into that, and they still don't have a game to play. Yeah, what was promised is still outstanding, and that's kind of a problem. But if a computer publisher is producing a game that you want to play and then they don't deliver it, that's like saying, oh yeah, you cut hair, therefore you have to cut my hair. Well, I don't want to cut your hair. I don't know why I don't want to cut your hair. I don't cut hair anyway, but silly example. Oh shit, man. Let's drop that off so I can actually get the frame on the rig. There we go. Now let's look at the trailer. That's probably good enough. But just because someone's said they're going to produce something and then don't go ahead with it, if you haven't invested any money in it, then you don't have any recourse. Now, if you paid for something and it doesn't deliver, then you need to demand your money back. But I don't see that you're deserved any more damages than getting your money back. Yeah, that wasn't very good. Okay, there we go. And it's coming up to 6 o'clock in the evening on the second day of spring. Oh, the other reason I moved the Valtra over to the cow farm is because it can supplement or it can do grass cutting to help feed the cows. Which the only tractor I had up to that point was the Class. So this has been my big tractor since the beginning, 320 horsepower, and that's hauling some very heavy equipment around, and does quite well. This map, while it's not crazy hilly like places like Goldcrest or Fellsbrunn or Ravenport, which do have really steep hills, that hill there is a big drain on your horsepower. There's a grass field, by the trees over there, and that also is a very steep hill, which when I used to create round bales, that used to be a problem because I'd end up with all the bales at the bottom of the hill. And because I use the realistic fuel mod, basically rather than looking at the equipment and saying, oh, you need 300 horsepower to haul this plough, I need 300 horsepower to haul the plough, plus the tractor needs some horsepower in order to move itself, and if you're going uphill you're going to need to overcome gravity in some way, and you're going to need even more horsepower. So just barely running 300 horsepower on a 300 horsepower piece of equipment, you're not going to go very fast with the realistic fuel mod. So you need the 320 horsepower tractor, and so that there requires 300 horsepower, and we're adequate for that. That only requires 240, and so we're 80 horsepower up over that requirement. That requires 270 because obviously seeding stuff. I mean, even this, which is 120 horsepower, plus that's 160, plus that's 70. The only tractor I have that can haul that and that fully laden was the Class until recently. Everything else, just you try to go uphill and they just crawled. There it is. So that is... oh no, 380, sorry. Yes. So 380 horsepower is adequate. I was running the Fast Track 8000 series at 320 horsepower, and even that was struggling with the plough and the cultivator. Okay, and it's coming up to 8 o'clock. I am going to fast wind through night, so I'm going to step the time up to get us to 8 o'clock. I might even be able to run time skip now. Skip night, yes we can. Okay, let's return back to normal. And the sun is going to rise at 6:46 tomorrow morning. No. Yes, 6:46 sunrise tomorrow. Yeah, with the base game, Farm Sim 17, Farm Sim 19, you just have to have adequate horsepower for the vehicle. But if you're running realistic fuel, then you need something a lot heavier to do the work. There's nothing there to sell. Oh, there's nothing there to sell. We need to check on the this tank. Okay, I have to fill that by 44% before the end of the year, because I'm going to be using that entire tank plus the slurry from the cows, plus the manure from the cows, plus the slurry and manure from the pigs too. I've nearly got as much manure as I had last year here, and a little bit more there. That was 180,000 litres, 180,000 litres, and was sufficient for one field. The the digestate tank at the BGA has a maximum capacity of 800,000 litres. We used 90% of that last year. So sheep are fine for today. Piggies need feeding. Now I don't have any problems with the straw because coming through winter they require a higher amount of straw than they do during spring. We're going to get to almost the end of spring before we have to drop more straw in those two. Water is needed and everything is needed. Let's get out there in the Massey Ferguson and do that. Hello Massey Ferguson, there we go. There's effectively three things that the realistic fuel mod does. One is to show you how much fuel you're using. So in this case I'm using about 1 litre. That's why small tractors are kind of good, because they don't use a lot of fuel for tiny jobs like this. And the class I think ticks over at about 40 litres an hour. So that is technically quite a expensive vehicle to run. Okay, how much of this are we going to need? Quite a bit. There's a power bar from 6 o'clock on the speedometer up to 12 o'clock on the speedometer, which starts off as green because I am really not overtaxing the engine dragging around a crate of beets. But yeah, once you start hauling around, if I started loading this thing up with sort of equipment that needed about 100 horsepower to run, kind of like that water tank we had down at the sheep farm, that quickly puts the power bar up to all the way to the top and is red, showing you are overtaxing the engine, and the fuel usage goes up by a similar amount as well. Now it's not a mod you have to use, I just decided I would use it on this farm. Now what am I running? On the Felsbrunn farm I'm running a Fendt Favorite 500. All you can want from a tractor for less than $100,000. It does have problems with some of the hills though. But it's cheap, and I'm running start from scratch playthrough, so it's not like you start with a lot of money. That was bad. Let's try and get that straightened out again. On my other two farms I'm running Valtra N's as my primary, fully up-engined to 200 horsepower. I was using those before I discovered how good the Fendt was. It's not particularly fast because it's an old tractor, but being an old tractor it's not particularly expensive. And the same's true of the Case 1455 XL. Very nice, cheap tractor for its capabilities. How's that doing? That's good. And we'll grab the Brantner, which is... I like the Brantner trailer for pig feeding. It's not too big, so it's fairly easy to move. I think the axle's set towards the back of the frame, so it's a little bit more predictable when you're reversing. I find that trailers with centre mounted wheels tend to be rather less predictable. That might be enough. That's the Rostelmash harvester. I just started using that on Arthur's farm, and yes, it is a nice small tractor. I skipped the bison. On one of my farms I'm using the tiny New Holland harvester, and on the other one I'm using the patched in what is it, this thing, the 1660 axial flow, because I started Estancia Apache on the day it was patched into the game, Farm Sim 19, and on the same day they patched in the Deutz 6.61 and the case axial flow. So it's kind of like a mini mod case as the playthrough. Let's see how many things we can pierce with our forks. And my very last farm start on Farm Sim 17, a couple of Sundays back, I did how I start a season's playthrough on Farm Sim 17, and I picked the Hurleman T4i, which I have never used on any playthrough before, and surprisingly impressive little tractor. Good starter equipment. We don't get the T4i in Farm Sim 19. Which is a shame, because sometimes it's good to have. It's got all the wheel options. I can't remember if it's got a good engine. It's got a front 3-point hitch, which is something I like if I'm only having one or two small tractors, because it lets me mount mower on the front, or the fertilizer set, which has an auxiliary tank on the front and a spreader on the back. And then up until that point I've never really used Hurleman. I've not really used steer much. What, the little H400 whatever it is, it's way back here, 488. That is a nice small tractor, although once again very limited. I tend to go with the Lindner because it has all-wheel steering. You can only get widen, twin and standard tyres, but you can have a front loader on it, and it has front and rear 3-point hitch. It doesn't make a good tractor that you're going to use for fertilising fields and what have you, because you can't put narrow tyres on it. Empty. There's empty. And being four-wheel stick, because I tend to play the smaller farms, the UK maps and the things like Old Streams, having an all-wheel drive tractor is kind of handy. And you don't want a Farm Sim 19 JCB, while it's all-wheel drive, it's a little bit big. Okay, we need corn as well. And I've probably vastly underestimated the amount of corn I actually need here. And I also find this little tractor and the Fendt 300 quite useful as small runabouts. Although I have noticed in Farm Sim 19 that they're kind of pricey, surprisingly enough. Well, I didn't overestimate by much. So that should be piggies all done. Piggies are all done. Oh, we just got 114 pigs, so that's awesome. So now we have to go and get the cows done. Who made Snetterton? I know we should be getting, or Oxygen David has suggested, we'll be getting a small brand new UK map, possibly around the new year. And I'm guessing that really depends on how long it takes Giants to get the patches out and tested. Because while we've got 1.13 on the PC, I don't think that has been ported over to the consoles, and they plan to have a bigger patch later on for everybody, console and PC. So I guess that's what they're working on now and what QA is testing, which means that anybody making mods isn't going to get any mods done and officially released. Also, the editor's not functioning properly, and they're going to need to fix that as well. Whether that will be included as part of the patch or whether we're going to have to wait, I don't know. Let's move forward a bit so the tree doesn't stick through the trailer. There we go. But then he's also, I think he had a vote of the people on his Facebook page, and I don't know if he has any other. I'm going to wash this tractor because it is kind of needing it, or any other social media. But it looks like they're considering Sandy Bay. Was he Snetterton? No, okay. There are a couple. Oh, Shamrock Valley. Shamrock Valley, Sandy Bay, and I can't remember what the third farm he was considering porting over. But anything you see that was made by Oxygen David, currently in the FarmSim 19 forums, is not authorised by himself, and he's generally a very bad port of the FarmSim 17 map. We know Black Sheep Modding are working on Oldstream Farm, and I am interested to see what that's going to look like. I will probably do a guided tour of the map, and for that I will probably do the guided tour in easy mode so we can see what equipment, or what equipment we start off with and what farm buildings we start off with, and then I'll do a probably start from scratch so we can just buy a vehicle and then drive around and see what's what new on that map. Oh, lights don't turn off when you turn the engine off. Gee, what is going on? Okay. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I prefer the UK or small European maps. Why have I got a bucket? Oh, I know why I've got a bucket, and we're going to have to swap that out. The smaller maps tend to encourage you to obviously use the smaller equipment. So you can get a Let's Play going quite quickly on a small map, because you're not waiting for huge 300, 400 horsepower tractors in order to buy huge great machinery that some of the American Midwest maps kind of require you to have to do anything semi-efficiently. Ooh. Yeah. Thank you very much, cows. I do like the ambient sounds on Farm Sim 19 as well. Right. Can't remember the mix. Oh, we're running out of hay. We're going to have to go somewhere to get some more sometime soon. Hold on. What happened there? Oh yes. Round bales getting spiked. Although there are some frustrating small farms, things like Drummond Farm, which had the a vehicle parked right outside the sell point, and that's what's drop. Unload bales here. See, okay. There we go. That's about 20. Okay, so I want one bale of straw. Is that a round straw bale? That's cool. We'll have that. And then I want a couple of buckets worth of silage in this thing. So probably want 2 bales of straw. This also is not good. No, I don't need straw there. That's right. Oh, good. Cows don't need straw because we have loads of it. Why is that not coming off? There we go. Okay, that came off. Yes, don't need straw because they had extra straw over the winter period. So they don't need it for spring. Because I am running... That's all the straw I've got, I think. And I think the last play session I added the straw bale buying mod because I really screwed up predictions. Now down at the sheep farm I've got about 32 bales of hay, which is going to be more than enough to feed the cows and the sheep and make TMR and everything else. But also in about 3 days time I can go out and make more hay if I need to. So not such a big deal, but straw I can only get when I harvest wheat or barley, and that's not going to happen till fall. I'd kind of like to get this map for 19, but I haven't seen anything produced by the modder who made this map since he made it. So I'm guessing the chances of seeing Lawfolds 19 is vanishingly small to non-existent. Although that said, I probably wouldn't play it for now because I'm still playing 17 until I get my last 2 achievements done. There we go, that was a better hit. Yeah, I started streaming when I got this PC. I'm running, is it an i7 8700K and the GTX 1080. The 1080 Ti wasn't available when I bought it, and this is, I mean, this is the best PC I've ever owned, hands down. Because normally I'll go out and buy something off the shelf and then add a couple of extra bits to it, but it's not you know, I've usually looked at the PC I'm playing with and said, well, it's kind of adequate for what I do, so I just need something a little bit better to tide me over a couple of years. And this time I just said, okay, this time I need a PC that I can play games really, in really high quality. Right, we don't need this much silage for this tank, but I'll keep it on board. Yeah, the Massey Ferguson just couldn't reach over the top of this mixer wagon very well. And to be fair, I don't need a huge tractor to feed the pigs. That's actually a detriment, because of that, the area where I'm parking the water and the... Did I give the pigs water? Yes. Yes. Oops. So that's 22,000 litres of TMR. Which is bigger than your standard tank, and up until now, working just with bales, I've been doing 2 silage, 2 hay and 1 straw to get a good mix. But now that I've got loose silage, I can top it up and make 22,000. Oh, you don't know what my last one was. AMD something. And effectively about 3 years old. And then it died. And then my wife started having problems with hers, so we took the hard drive out of mine, and stuck it in her PC. And that is my standby because I need a PC to work from home with. However, just after that, my office gave me a PC to use at home, so I don't necessarily need the hot backup. Okay, so that's done. And we still have TMR in there. So how are we doing? Done. There is no grass on the ground and we need to give them water. Okay, we can do all that. For those of you who are interested, I got my PC from Digital Storm, and I'm very happy with what they built me. However, you need to be aware that it does take up to 4 weeks to get delivered, because they don't build them until you order them, and then it goes through their testing procedures to make sure A, each component is good, and then B, each component works well with all the rest of them once they've assembled it. And we bought one for me, one for my wife, and they turned up and worked fine. Although we had a power outage, very brief, just after I'd plugged mine in, and it messed up the SSD, so I had to do a reinstall the OS on it. I called them up and said, something seems to have gone wrong, so they talked me through how to do a hard reset, and everything worked fine. So happy enough with that. And we immediately went out to the store that weekend and bought ourselves 2 UPS. And we're running the modem on my wife's UPS and the router on mine. So even when the power goes out, we don't lose the internet. Unfortunately, the work PC doesn't have such benefits, so while it would still be connected to the internet, it does not have a UPS connection. And I think I over-specified the UPS that I bought because it's estimating I've got an hour and a half worth of runtime. So I might buy a small UPS for the work PC. Okay, got that. Reverse. So that's animals fed. Well, hang on. I might come back to this tractor in a minute. We need to go investigate grass. Is just over here somewhere. There we go. That looks like grass growing. Oh, that's a pain. So, big issue with this farm is there is only one silage bunker here at the cow place. Now, normally what I've done in the past is put a mower on the front of a tractor, grab the loading wagon, fill up the loading wagon with grass, and then unload the grass into the cow trough and put the rest in the silage bunker. This year I can't do that because we've got what's that? 1.3. So we had 1.4 million litres of silage in this bunker, and I don't have somewhere else to start a supply of the next round of silage. Which means I'm going to have to take this tractor all the way up to the BGA in order to offload the excess grass. Where did I put the grass equipment? Is it in there? Yes. Okay then. And these here are the seed and fertilizer resupply tanks, but frankly they just cost too much to use, especially when you're starting. At least the map maker gave you 16 of each solid, liquid, fertilizer and seed, so that got you going initially, such that you didn't have to spend vast amounts of money on those things. But when I figured out how much they cost to run or use, it was a case of, oh well, I'm not doing that. No. Okay, why can't I connect? Oh, we're way too close. There we go. I think I'll go cut the grass in the cow pen if I can get the tractor out. There we go. I just gave my Logitech headset to my wife because at the moment I'm running on a directional mic. What is it? Is it Blue Yeti? And what am I trying to do here? And speakers. So I've dispensed using the headset, but I know some people were complaining about hearing background noise or hearing echoes in that setup. So I might go back to using a headset. But my wife was saying that her headset's very uncomfortable after a while. And the Logitech is a little bit more comfortable because it has the padded ear piece and a long cable. So I might buy her one. She sort of said, yeah, I want one for Christmas. And I was reading the reviews and they were pretty much, yes, this is a really comfortable headset, but after a couple of hours it starts getting uncomfortable. And I said, well, that's the complaint she's got with her current one, but I think it might be a case of, well, if you're buying a headset, that's just life. They do get uncomfortable if you wear them for 10 hours a day. And the only option for a good, comfortable headset is probably something like a aviation headset, which I do have, but you couldn't plug it into a PC because it doesn't have the right connectors. Oh, you will have a lot. Yes, As I said, I will probably switch that to so that Discord is running through a headset. And since we're going out shopping today, maybe I'll buy one, and then my wife can have that, and I'll get my old one back. Find out, Bessie. Well, that's good to know. Thanks for that information. No, I have not got tired of FS19. I am, as I've played more of it, I've started to enjoy it more and more. It's just that as I said when Farm Sim 19 came out, I still have 2 achievements to make on Farm Sim 17, and I'm enjoying this farm. We've just started year 5 on this particular playthrough, although I only started streaming beginning of year 4. Oh well, run the cows over. But it's a nice farm. It's mature. The thing is with, you know, if I played when I play 19 as a playthrough, either you've got to cheat in money to get big equipment and lots of fields, or you've got to you're starting from scratch, so all you're getting to see is the small equipment and a couple of fields. So it's nice to go back to what I consider to be a mature map with large equipment and many fields, and soon to be many more fields. Lots of cows, lots of sheep, lots of pigs. I was going to say lots of goats, but yeah, we don't have any goats. And to get a farm to what I consider to be a mature state is going to take a couple of months of playing Farm Sim 19. But yeah, when I switched playing warships on this PC compared to my last one, when playing with Arthur, it would be a case of, okay, Ose, which way are we going? I don't know, I'm still loading the battle, and I could be joining the battle anywhere up to a minute 15 into it before everything resolved and I was able to start playing, and that's not ideal. Now on average it was still 30-45 seconds after the battle started that I was getting into the game. Not critical, but the guns were already loaded, and if I'd fired HE from a battleship at the end of the last battle, it was going to be loaded with HE when I got started, and typically I like to have AP loaded for my first salvo. Now with this PC, I'm pretty much loaded into the game with the counter still at 40 seconds before the battle starts, so I can be reviewing the other team's composition, looking at the map, looking at where I'm starting and figuring out where I'm going to go. So there's that. And it's not like I was playing on a bad internet connection. What I was playing on was a very poor system. I've seen some people, horses tend to be something that is fairly easy to get into. If you spend the first couple of days growing oats and then saving some of them, the horse paddock is quite cheap comparatively to things like cows and sheep and pigs. And horses, you can only support 8 on the small one, 16 on the large one. And your time is used up riding them daily. and then you can sell them for, if you ride them daily for 10 days, you can sell them for about 50,000 profit, or 45,000 profit, not including the food. So it's not like the horses are a difficult thing. They've nerfed wool income quite significantly, so buying a bunch of sheep and then expecting anything out of them, you'll get it eventually, but it's going to take a while, and you need a lot of sheep to produce a lot of wool, and the wool's not giving you $7,000 per litre, it's giving you about 1,000, I think. Yeah, that is the other problem, and it's a problem I've been coming to grips with on this farm. Is I am getting to the point where I have more equipment than I had shed space for. Plus I store bales in the barns because while I'm playing seasons, then the map is not seasons ready, so the bales will not be destroyed no matter where they are. I can leave them lying out in a field and they won't get destroyed. To go with the sort of what do you call it, to support the ideas behind Seasons gameplay, I make sure that my bales are always undercover. So that's a barn on the sheep farm and on the cow farm that I can't use for equipment. And there is no flat space anywhere on the map that I can use for placeables, except fields. So I'm going to have to take a field out of commission in order to add any more farm storage. But that's now a thing in Farm Sim 19, and I kind of come to grips with it. I'd been wrestling with it for effectively the 4 game years I'd been playing this. I've been playing this map for pretty much 450 hours. And so over the 450 hours I was sort of annoyed that I couldn't I couldn't place anything anywhere. And now I'm coming to the point where, well, maybe I buy a field and turn it into a yard area that I can store stuff. And because this is a mature farm, excuse me, it's not a problem for me to go out and spend 150,000 on a new field and then just gravel it over and place some sheds on it. Whereas when you're just starting out on a brand new farm with small equipment, the last thing you need to be doing is wasting money, effectively, buying a field so you can put your barns in. You don't want to do that, because you've got to justify every dollar spent, and every dollar spent must be making you money almost immediately. This goes back to a conversation I had with my what was it, the Sunday special about 2 weeks ago, where I was discussing how I can, what thought processes I go through when starting a season's playthrough. And one of them is, what equipment has the map designer given me? Do I need it all? Because it's all going to cost me money from the start, and I'm not going to be using it immediately. The harvester, it's going to be sitting in my barn for 2 seasons before I get to take it out to the field and start harvesting. Do I need $300,000 or $200,000 tied up in harvesting equipment that I'm not going to use for 6 months? I've got 3 starting tractors. Do I need 3 starting tractors? There's just me, and I really don't want to be spending money on workers because they're not providing me direct benefit of income. So maybe I sell the harvester, I sell 2 of the 3 tractors that I've been given, and oh, that's full already. Did I lift that up? Yes. I think the bag's already done. Okay, so yeah, I'm looking to use as little as possible in equipment, buy the equipment that is necessary for me to run the farm and make a profit, and then ideally I want to buy fields because they're the biggest return on investment I can have. And so on Farm Sim 19, okay, I need to place a silo and I don't have any flat ground that's not field. I'm going to have to take a field out of action, or part of a field out of action, and I want that field producing crop because that's going to make me more money, which is going to make the farm profitable, which is going to benefit over the longer term. Now once a farm's this old, I don't care. This field here, I just bought it last year. It's not very big, it's directly attached to this farmyard. I could put a bunch of buildings on that. I could put a bale storage shed. There's a mod for that. I could put... It's a shame there's no bunker silos, because I could take that out and put a second bunker silo in it. And then I wouldn't have to drive off to the BGA with this lot. Yeah, things like that. Now, at this point I've got $300,000. Pounds, sorry. Scotland still uses pounds. So it's not a hardship for me to say, well, you know what, I've got all the equipment I really need, so maybe I can go off and buy a field that I'm not going to use for arable purposes, because I'm still making a ton of money every year. Oh, it's going to rain soon. That's nice. What was this? Day 3 of spring. Day 4 or 5 of spring, I'm going to pull up the last 2 oilseed radish fields in order to plant corn and soybeans, I think. So yeah, that's the deal. So it's as I said, it's nice to have a mature farm that I'm still streaming. And then maybe as my Farm Sim 19 farms get more mature, I'll be more happy to retire this one because I've got a good functioning replacement. Or alternative, should I say, not replacement. But then the other thing, I mean, my main stream farm, which I usually do Tuesdays and Thursdays, but this last week we decided to do multiplayer ETS instead. Euro Truck Simulator, if you're unaware, is Estancia Pacho. And it's okay as a farm, but it's not me. Oh, I need to get to... the BGA said, well, it's probably about 3 hours before it starts raining. And, everybody's playing Ravenport and everybody's playing Felsbrunn. So it's not like I'm doing that much different from everybody else. Now, playing Ravenport multiplayer, it's fun because it's multiplayer. And it's something I found when I used to play role-playing, online role-playing games. An online role-playing game is really boring. But if you've got a team of people who, there's always going to be someone around, then online role-playing games suddenly become fun. Not because the game is great, but because the people you're playing with make it fun. So playing Farm Sim with Arthur and friends is fun, because there's a bunch of us all working together to achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve. With ETS, it's fun because there's people, not because it's a good game. It's a good game. Why didn't that... Oh. Why aren't you unloading? Oh, because I'm selected on the mower and you can't unload a mower. Okay, so there's the start of the silage bunker for this year. And typically what I do here is I'll mow a trailer load of grass for cow food. I'll feed the cows and then I'll bring the rest up to a bunker and just drop it in there. And then at the end of the year I'll add my corn harvest to it and compress it and cover it over, and I've got a bunch of silage. Drive on the left in Scotland. Woo! Hello. Yeah, I'm not sure what caused that lag. And it could be Arthur just needed to reboot his PC. It's kind of what he suggested that maybe he needs to do. But come the new year, once we start getting mod maps, then it'll get a little bit more interesting, because I can pick a farm that is more my style, or my preferred style of play, and play on that. I'm fairly certain Estancia Apache will be retired eventually, but I'll be playing it until January in all likelihood. And the same with my starting from scratch farm. I've got to play that a little bit more because I want to compare the differences between starting from scratch, farm manager, and easy mode. And it's not something I've been paying much attention to. And then when I start a mod map, I'll have an idea of which mode I want to play with and how I want to play. Oh, hi Peterson. How you doing? Sorry, I'm trying to concentrate on not crashing into the trees, although most of these trees are illusions. You can drive through them. Yeah. Glance mod, I mean, in this mode, glance mod is not that significant, because obviously it's just me. Even when I've got a helper, I'm usually in direct support of the helper, and you get the harvester is 80% full message come up, so you don't need glance, although it's kind of handy. I've gotten used to it. But yesterday, playing multiplayer, I could seriously have used a glance mod. Because I've got, one of my farmers is harvesting, another one's ploughing, or two of them were ploughing. But I needed to know when the harvester was getting full so I could pull up and unload it. And if I could have just looked up and said, oh right, yeah, you're 90% full, I better get over there and with the trailer, it would have been a lot easier. Seasons, I enjoy playing with seasons. It kind of, for me, it slows the game down a bit. I've found, especially on Farm Sim 19 in a lot of the, or in the easy mode start, and in the farm manager start, your crop growth speed is fast or medium, and quite frankly I can hardly keep up with it sometimes. And typically I'll have oh, there's weeds, oh, the crop's matured, I can't get rid of the weeds anymore, and that's not ideal. Stick these back in the workshop. So I'm pretty sure nothing in this yard needs to be maintained for about 2 months. Oh no, 2 seasons. And that is way too sharp. I'm going to take those forks out. The arms out. Oh, don't do that. Yay. That's the problem. This trailer actually has a steerable rear axle. There's not a lot of space here. There we go. Okay, I'll put the trailer over there. Come on. Drop. Thank you. Nope. Now we go forwards. Since you've now seen it, I might as well do a guided tour of the latest piece of equipment I've added to this farm. This is the class Zerion 4000, and I bought that to do cultivating and ploughing and seeding, along with the class. What is it? The Axe. What's this one again? This is the Axion Zerion. Yeah, the Axion 920. I felt it needed some help. I've put over 110 hours on the 920. And it's the only tractor I have that can plough, cultivate and seed. And I found, even in spite of the fact I'd bought the heavier JCB 320 horsepower, on some of that equipment it was struggling. So I figured, okay, I need a bigger tractor to help, so I can do 2 tasks at the same time, 2 heavy tasks at the same time. So I bought that thing, and it's kind of nice. It's a rigid frame with 4-wheel steering. Oh, lift. Yeah, and I think the same thing. The maps that they've given us are sufficient to allow us to explore the potentials. And that's all you're really looking for. Now, each map has its own, each map does have its own challenge. I will go with that. But they all boil down to pretty much the same thing. When you get to maps like this, one of the reasons I like this map is, okay, here's the field, and I have that wide area of grass at the edge before I hit the hedge. And I can't drive through the hedge because there's a fence in it. On some of the other fields there are dry stone walls surrounding them. And so I'm kind of, it gives me enough room to turn around a vehicle in in the stretches outside of the defined field. You go to something like what was it, Coldborough Park Farm, and the edges of the field are almost butted straight up to the hedges. That makes getting a harvester into the field very difficult, because the gate's narrow, so you've got to come in without the header attached, and then you've got to try and get the header in a place where you can connect to the harvester and get as much crop as possible. But you're going to run over your crops with the tractor as you're pulling the header in. So, oh crap, it's 11:30. Excuse me. So, it's the challenge in a lot of the small British UK farms is you've got very, very tight fields. You're probably not going to do trailed planters and trailed spreaders and stuff like that. And you'll notice on this farm, I've still got spreaders and sprayers which mount directly to the back of the tractor. And it's because it's what I'm used to on the smaller farms, like old streams, like Coldborough Park, like Chellington. So, I kind of have a little bit more freedom on this farm to use the towed equipment. So I could be using... where is it? I could be using this thing rather than this, but or that. I think I've got that one. But I'm using that because I'm used to something that's hard mounted to the back of the tractor and is not a problem to reverse. Same with the sprayers. I'm using this type of equipment rather than this equipment. I could use that one. That's or similar. Because the fields on this map are big enough that I could warrant having one. But it's expensive, and I wanted large cultivator. 12 metre width. I don't think I could justify having wider than 12 metre width on that. That's 4.9 metres. The only thing bigger is that one is 6.2, and I barely have enough horsepower to run it. And that is huge, and I definitely don't have enough horsepower to run it. And I couldn't manoeuvre a 10.5 metre trailed plough round these fields. But doing these fields with a 3 metre wide plough, forget it. It's going to take you a month of Sundays. So, that's kind of why I'm stuck with some equipment. Also with the sprayers, those arms are, the booms are really wide, and the trailed the trailed units can be tricky, especially with all the fences and walls around the field. Now, something like Goldcrest, not a problem. If you've got a tree in the way, go and chop the tree down, and you can run that up and down fields no sweat. But here it's slightly more restrictive. Anyway, it is 11:30 now, and I said I was going to finish this at 11 because I've got some computer equipment to take to recycling. So we will do the sheep tomorrow. Oh, we're going to get another... Wow, we've got 150 sheep. 115 pigs, and cows aren't going to breed until summer. Got a lot of milk. I need to check on the... Oh, we've maxed out the eggs. Let's go collect those. They don't pay much, but it's something. Hi, chickens. And I hate this. I hate this setup for chickens, because when it snows, you can't find the eggs in this type of field. I much prefer Old Stream Farm, where the eggs are all in a pile in the corner of a shed. Or Farm Sim 19, where they're all in a cardboard box. This is a mini game all to itself. 2 more. I usually collect the eggs, and when I've got about 100, I'll take them to the store the next time I go, and it's worth about £700, so nothing to write home about in the grand scheme of things when I'm selling trailers load of stuff at 10,000. Good fun. Yes, although as I said, yet to buy cows because it's expensive. In seasons, what I do with cows is I'm not going to buy cows until I've got a supply of silage bales, a supply of hay bales, and a supply of straw bales. So the earliest I can buy cows is at the end of the first game year, which is what I did here. Sheep I bought at the beginning of summer because they have all they need is grass or hay, and obviously with seasons you want hay because grass decays. So in here we have big stacks of hay, and I might need some of those over at the cow farm. I might just turn where was it? This field here is grass, and so I might just harvest that as hay, turn hay bales and put them in the barn for use. So anyway, I need to go because I have things to do. So everybody have a good Saturday. I may be back later today in the evening. I really don't know what my schedule's going to be and what my wife has planned for us today, but I do know I need to get to the recycle place before they close, and then I go from there. So have fun, have a good Saturday, and I may be back later, or I may be back tomorrow. Otherwise I'll be back Monday. I don't know what the plans are. I need to check with Arthur if he's still planning to do warships or not. So take care. I'll update the schedule below when I find out what it is.